Most of the edges in traditional best ball contests have long evaporated, but I recently uncovered a few in Underdog's new look Eliminator best ball contest, and I'm going to share everything I've discovered in this video so that one of us can take down the $200,000 top prize. I've been deep in the data weeds, reviewing sims, analyzing lineups, and I have actionable strategy tips for you on which weeks to optimize for, how to handle bye weeks, stacking, roster construction, player targets, all of it. Consider this your comprehensive guide to shipping the 2025 Eliminator contest on Underdog. Let's get to it. The Eliminator was already the coolest contest on Underdog last year, and then they somehow found a way to make it even more interesting in 2025. If you aren't familiar with how the contest works, well, it's just like it sounds. It's an NFL survivor pool, but for fantasy. Last year, the contest eliminated only a small portion of the field each week. You can see in this chart, after week 1, 10 of 12 advanced, after week 2, 8 of 10 advanced, and so on. Every week, a higher percentage of teams was eliminated until we arrived at a week 17 final with 115 teams. All you had to do to survive and advance was not be in the bottom percentile of each weekly pod. But this year, Underdog said, let's take the condom off. Sorry to the kids. Let's do this head-to-head, mano-y-mano. In week 1, 6 of 12 will still advance. That's a normal size pod. But after that, every single week until a 3-person final in week 17 is a head-to-head matchup versus a single opponent. This format introduces all kinds of wrinkles that we need to account for. First of all, this is going to be the best sweat on Underdog. No tabbing through a bunch of rosters to figure out what you need or who you are going against. Every week, from week 2 to week 16, you'll be able to look at a single opponent and know exactly what you need to beat to advance. Also, the prizes escalate in a very fun way this year. Instead of the min caches that topped out at $300 in week 16 in the 2024 Eliminator, this year the prizes will essentially double each week starting in week 4. If you make it to week 11, that's $1,000. $2K for week 12, $5K for week 13, $10K in week 14, $20K week 15, $50K week 16, and then that 3-person week 17 final, $200K to first, $100K to second, and $76,000 to third. So how do we get there? How do we reach the top of the Eliminator mountain in week 17? Well, for one, we're going to need an entirely new strategic playbook for attacking this new look Eliminator contest. And that's exactly what I got for you today. Right away, let's start with the most obvious difference between Elim 2024 and Elim 2025. I'm going to say these words a ton, so I'm already going to start abbreviating here. There is way more randomness and variance this year. When you go up against a group of opponents, that variance is smoothed out. But when you face a single opponent, it's ratcheted way up. If you've ever dabbled in the DFS cash game streets, like I do once a year in week 18, it's a very similar concept to playing a large field double up versus lots of opponents versus a head-to-head opponent versus a single opponent. In a large double up, you'll need a slightly better score than average to win. But in a head-to-head, you could be playing a team who scores 50 points or one who scores 200. That means the pod luck of which team you are randomly paired against each week is going to play a big factor in Eliminator 2025. In working on this video, I paired up with Christopher Davis from the Deposit Kingdom, who ran a bunch of sims for me, 5,000 to be exact, and provided the foundation for a bunch of the actionable takeaways I'm going to share in this video. So shout out to Chris. The methodology was pretty simple. Chris looked at BBM teams from last year and simmed them across 3 different contest formats: Best Ball Mania, Eliminator 2024, and Eliminator 2025. These are rudimentary sims that used last week's scores, so the only randomness comes from how the pods function. And yes, I said these are BBM teams. They weren't drafted to succeed in the Eliminator, but by simming them across the Eliminator structures, we were able to glean some valuable insights on how we should be constructing our teams and what tweaks we need to make in the Eliminator 2025 compared to other contests. And the first thing the sims confirmed is that there is way more randomness and variance involved in the contest this year. In the sims, the Eliminator 2025 had 1,129 different champions across the 5,000 sims, while the Eliminator 2024 had only 135 different champions. There were also fewer repeat champions in the 2025 Sims compared to the 2024 Sims. Here's a really interesting example of this, looking at a team that user Smashtron drafted. It's a wild team, elite quarterback, double elite tight end, double anchor RB, hero wide receiver team. But check out the disparity in his payout expectation in 2024 versus 2025. Last year, you can see the payouts are consistent across the 2024 Sims. In most scenarios, that team was making the finals in the Eliminator with an expected payout of around $1,000. But in the 2025 Sims, there was a much wider range of outcomes for the payout ceiling and the floor. Sometimes the team wins the entire thing for $200K, and other times it doesn't make any money at all. It may or may not surprise you to learn that the best 2024 team for this year's Eliminator structure was Mathology's legendary regular season champion roster from BBM4. In our simulations, the Mathology team had an eye-popping expected value of $31,046 in the 2025 Eliminator compared to just an EV of $1,838 in the 2024 Eliminator. It also had an EV of $46 in BBM5. If you need a refresher on the team, it was elite quarterback with 3 quarterbacks, double anchor RB with 5 running backs, punt tight end with 3 late, and then 7 wide receivers, and of course, Jamar Chase up top. It is hard to draw too many strong conclusions for what this team means for 2025 Eliminator strategy, other than just drafting the stone cold nuts at every pick. But it does help illuminate that you can think of Eliminator 2025 as a total points contest, but with an infinitely more fun sweat. But let's get into more of the nuts and bolts of how we need to adjust our strategies for the Eliminator this year. The next thing you need to know, and this is painful for me to say as the ultimate week 17 bro, it's that week 1 is all that matters. And this took us a second to wrap our heads around, but it makes sense upon further inspection. Week 1 is the only week other than week 17 that isn't head-to-head. It's that 6 of 12 grouping. So you can't slip through that week via pod luck like you can the other weeks due to the smoothed out variance with more teams. And not only is week 1 the most important week, but week 17 doesn't matter because it's only a 3-person final. You can see last year, 10 of 12 in week 1 in a 115 team final means week 1 doesn't matter and week 17 does, and now it's been completely flipped. In 2024, arriving in week 17 wasn't enough. It was a 115 team final, and you needed to finish top 10 to crack $10,000 in prizes, which meant you still needed to be optimizing for that final week and building teams that peak late in the season, just like we do for BBM. But this year, it's all about getting past week 1 so you can enter the head-to-head gauntlet. The Sims back up the importance of week 1 in the 2025 Eliminator. You can see in this chart where purple colors indicate a worse week 1 performance and green indicates a better performance. That week 1 is far more important in Eliminator 2025 than it is for last year's Eliminator or BBM. The inverse is true as well. In this week 17 chart, you can see how the green, aka better performances, lead to a much higher EV in BBM and last year's Eliminator compared to Eliminator 2025. Check out this team from user Jammin1995. It was elite quarterback plus 3 punt tight ends. This team had an average value of $5,139 for the 2025 Eliminator. It finished in the top 3 in 172 out of 5,000 simulations. But its EV in the 2024 Eliminator was significantly less, only $947. You can see in this chart that the EV is lower in last year's Eliminator because it didn't perform well in week 17. It had only 139 points compared to its previous 6 weeks where it was scoring pretty well. So the same team, but drastically different EV because Eliminator 2024 punished it in week 17 for a poor outing, while Eliminator 2025 doesn't punish it because it's already done the hard work of moving up the pay ladder. It is worth mentioning that a higher score in week 17 is connected to a better scoring overall team. But for Eliminator 2025, it doesn't seem to have much of an impact on results beyond that. It just means that good teams are more likely to stay good. And this format does not reward bad and average teams sneaking into the playoffs at the very end of the season in the same way BBM does. Speaking of which, look at this BBM team I drafted last year. This is a classic Pete BBM team, anchor RB, elite tight end, 2 stacked quarterbacks, and yes, 7 rookies. And you can see in the sim, it dominated in week 16 and week 17, which was obviously what I was going for in BBM. But you can also see how poorly this type of team does in the Eliminator. In none of the 5,000 sim runs of the 2025 Eliminator did it survive past week 7. It had 24 cents of EV. We might have to add a sad trombone here, Chris. And this is all because the team scored 94 points in week 1, a bottom 20th percentile score. In a head-to-head matchup, this team would have had a 20% chance of advancing. But in the 6 out of 12 advanced structure, this specific team was eliminated 98.8% of the time in week 1. Take it away, Cowboy Man.
Week 17, you still got to get there, bro.
This brings us to our first concrete action item. You have to be optimizing for week 1. We need to be optimizing our teams for solid week 1 scores. I wouldn't go as far as worrying about bringbacks and, stacking up week 1 in the same way we do week 17, but it's more about reducing our downside risk in avoiding bottom percentile week 1 scores. This means lean into more projectable RB volume and also be extremely cautious with rookies. That goated Mathology team we looked at earlier only had 3 rookies on it. None of them were taken before round 10, and one of them was a complete bust, Johnny Wilson. That's going to be a fun remember that guy. In working on this video, I looked at the rankings over at Legendary Upside and compared their BBM ranks with their Eliminator 2025 ranks to see what tweaks they were making, and their adjustments perfectly dovetail with optimizing for week 1 and proceeding with rookie caution. Fringe rookies who aren't expected to contribute until late in the season are severely penalized. Brashard Smith, for example, has a 195 ranking in BBM versus 227 in Eliminator. Alec Iomanor, 196 BBM versus 224. The handcuff running backs with no standalone value to help our teams early are also less attractive. Leg Up has Zach Charbonnet at 116 in BBM versus 142 in Eliminator. And on the flip side, some of the quarterbacks and tight ends we avoid in BBM because of late season job security risk have more appeal in the Eliminator. For instance, Joe Flacco is 234 in their BBM ranks, but he's 206 in the Eliminator. Juwan Johnson, 230 in BBM, 198 in the Eliminator. When we looked at overall roster builds in the Sims, there weren't too many strong conclusions to make. There are just so many variables when looking at 18 different picks in a variety of structures, but we did notice some interesting results when we isolated it to just look at the EV of various quarterback and tight end roster construction, so just at the onesie positions. And the methodology here was looking at the distribution of quarterback and tight end constructions among the top 100 teams in the simulations for the Eliminator 2025, and then comparing that to the overall field distribution. Basically, what do winning teams do differently compared to the field? And we can see here that 3 tight end teams are appearing at a much higher frequency than 2 tight end teams, and that 2 quarterback, 3 tight end, and 3 quarterback and 3 tight end teams appeared the most in that top 100 sample. And of course, usual caveats, there's always risk with this kind of analysis that it's overfitted to what happened at the tight end position in the previous year, right? In 2024, the elite tight ends largely busted, and there were multiple late round tight end hits. However, I'd wager that there is some signal here in that 3 tight end is more resilient for an Eliminator format that punishes low scoring weeks and bye weeks. And my action item recommendation would be to mostly lean into 3 tight end builds unless you spend significant early capital at the position. Here's one example of an extreme punt quarterback and punt tight end build from Thanks Obama that fared very well in our Sims. This team had a wild 0-4-9-0 build through 13 rounds and then took 2 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends with the last 5 picks. This team had an average expected value of $1,208 for the 2025 Eliminator and a surprisingly nice EV of $1,415 for the 2024 Eliminator as well. This team was the champion in 16 of our 5,000 simulations in the 2025 Eliminator contest. Congrats on your Skolanskis, Obama. Let's talk stacking now, which is an incredibly tricky nut to crack for this specific contest. Because on the one hand, we do want to reduce the number of things we get right, and stacking up teammates allows us to get multiple things right for the price of one. But on the other hand, it also increases our risk of ruin on a given week, because a large block of teammates not only have the same bye week, but when the team fails, well, most of those players are likely to fail together as well. We looked at the teams with the highest EV in our sims to see if we could glean anything interesting about stacking. And you'll notice here that the sweet spot tends to be anywhere between 2 to 5 teammates. After 5, the EV of the team drops dramatically, confirming our intuition that overstacking is likely very bad in this format. You can see how Mathology perfectly towed that line on his nutted team from last year that scored so well in the Eliminator 2025 sims. He had strong correlations surrounding his 3 quarterbacks, but none of them went overboard. He had Barkley and Wilson with Hurts, so a 3-man stack. He had Jamar Chase, Chase Brown, and Gesicki with Joe Burrow, so a 4-man stack. And then he had McLaurin and Ertz with Jaden Daniels, another 3-man stack. The action item here is to balance the benefits and downsides of correlations with careful stacking. If you correlate too little, you're forced into hitting an 18-leg parlay. On that Mathology example, he got 10 picks right by simply concentrating on 3 teams. But on the other side of that coin, if you correlate too much, you open yourself up to way too much downside risk for this format, especially in week 1 and when a correlated team's bye week hits. However, there is one very interesting exception to this, and it's probably my favorite finding from doing this research with Chris, and it's a little bye week hack. Check out this fascinating use case we uncovered. It's a BBM team drafted by user Chef1222, and since I've been watching the Bear, I guess I can say thank you, Chef. This team from Chef had 7 Commanders players on it. Terry McLaurin, Daniels, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Ben Sinnott, Luke McCaffrey, and Zach Ertz. On the surface, I would blindly say, this is way too many players from the same team for the Eliminator. But this team actually had an EV of $7,532 in our Eliminator 2025 sims. How is that possible? How in the world could a team get through the gauntlet with 7 buys and still have an incredible EV? Well, check the bye week on the Commanders last year, week 14. And if you are eliminated in week 14 in the 2025 contest, that means you are top 24 overall and have already locked up $10,000. I think this could be an extremely valuable strategic angle for 2025 Eliminator drafts. It's one I almost didn't even want to share in this video. But hey, if you made it this far, first of all, please subscribe. But this nugget is now all yours. In 2025, we have 4 teams with a week 14 bye: the Giants, the Patriots, the Panthers, and the 49ers. Stacking up these 4 teams essentially allows you to free roll the bye week risk of ruin that every other team stack comes with, while still reaping the benefits of team level correlation across the season. The fact that 3 of the offenses are super cheap in the Giants, the Patriots, and the Panthers only makes this angle more attractive. So while I would normally say, hey, don't stack up more than 3 or so players from a team, I think you can push it with these 4 offenses. You can push it to 4, maybe 5 players, especially the cheap ones. These backdoor stacks are basically a glitch in the 2025 Eliminator game that we can take advantage of. And while it isn't quite as potent as week 14, I do think you can apply this same logic on a sliding scale. Basically, not all buys are created equal in this format. Stacking the week 12 buys is going to be less impactful to your EV than stacking the week 5 buys. Basically, the further you get into the season, the less worried you need to be about the buys because the prizes are escalating each subsequent week, which means the EV of your teams is escalating. On the whole, though, we think the bye weeks might be overemphasized as far as the Eliminator 2025 strategy goes. Chris couldn't find any noticeable impact of bye week overlap in EV in the data, and I think it's because these late buys actually can help you out and get your team through the earlier parts of the season. And this does make sense to me compared to the 2024 format, where we needed to be much more sensitive to bye weeks. And it does all come back to the increased pod variance in 2025 with head-to-head matchups. That pod variance works in both directions. Check out this example here. This team was drafted by a user named Draft Chief. It's a 3-quarterback, 3-tight-end build, but with 6 Week 12 buys. This team had a way better EV in Eliminator 2025, $402 compared to just $49 in Eliminator 2024. In the 2024 simulations, 4,443 of 4,444 of his surviving teams were eliminated in Week 12, where the structure was 5 of 9 advance. But in the 2025 simulations, 13 of his 510 surviving teams were able to get past Week 12. In this case, the 2-pod variance was Draft Chief's friend. Despite all of the buys, pod variance meant that he was paired up with 13 other dud teams that allowed him to essentially steal a win, whereas he was not able to steal from 4 other teams in the 2024 format with the larger pod. So our ultimate goal in this contest is to draft the best plays and score a shit ton of points every week. Right. Got it, Pete. I mean, yes, there is some truth to that. In the same way there is truth to that in every single contest that we play. But more conceptually, our goal is to lower variance and standard deviation in our weekly scores, specifically in week 1. To survive in the 2025 Eliminator contest, you want a consistent team. Consistency is far more important than spike weeks in this format. Let me throw one last chart at you here, and then we're going to hop in a draft. In this chart, the purple colors indicate lower standard deviation, and green indicates higher. You can see purple is rewarded way more in Eliminator 2025, while green, aka higher standard deviation, is rewarded in BBM in Eliminator 2024. TLDR. We want lots of points. We want a high floor of points for the entire season, and we need to do it right out of the gate starting in week 1. All right, this is all fun in theory. Let's see how it actually looks in a draft. I'm going to hop in one right now and give myself a few challenges that I think reflect some of the general strategy goals we should be trying to accomplish in this contest. I'm going to try to get 3 tight ends. I am going to limit myself to no more than 3 rookies. And I generally have a rookie fetish in BBM, but I'm going to limit myself here. I'm also going to have no more than 3 players from any one team, except I'm going to aim for 4 or more from one of the week 14 teams, Giants, Patriots, Panthers, or 49ers. All right, let's see if we can pull it off. All right, we have hopped in a Eliminator 2025 draft. It's time to see if we can put some of these ideas into action here. I got the 1-3 in this spot, which means I'll probably be looking at a running back. You can see here the ADP is different in these contests. I mentioned it when I was looking at the differences between the leg up rankings. These contests have different IDs, different ADPs. Some of those ADP shifts make sense relative to some of the strategic angles we were discussing, but some of them are just like weird quirks of there being, less volume in the Eliminator contest. You think about the main ADPs, those have all the puppies, all of the, other side contests. That gives us a bigger sample size and I think more efficient ADP. So you can get some wonky stuff over here. I didn't upload any rankings for this. I kind of want to draft it off ADP and use that as a springboard to discussing some of these decisions. But yeah, let's make our first tweak here. And it is in line with ADP. Generally, Justin Jefferson might be going here, but because we want to lean into some of that early projectable volume at running back, let's go ahead and grab Bijan Robinson here at 1-3, and we will be off to the races. Obviously, one thing that's not ideal, and again, it doesn't mean you're going to pass on everyone with an early buy, but Bijan with the early week 5 buy, in general, those later buys are going to be a little more attractive. Maybe you could make a strong case that, a guy like CMC should be going higher because you get that early running back volume and you also get that week 14 buy. So as we progress through the draft, you will notice that I am going to be really cognizant of this. And I don't want to be stacking up too many of those early week buys. I think in working on this video, that was really the biggest takeaway for me. About to be on the clock here at 2:10 after starting with Bijan. Definitely not going to do Josh Jacobs. That would be a second week 5 buy, doubling up on it, and an early buy. So we're going to pass on him. I've been pretty skittish personally with Rashee Rice, so I'm also going to pass on that. I think Chase Brown is a nice pick here. The running backs continue to get pushed up in this format. We get the week 10 buy there, which is nice, and we get that strong base of running back production at the start of our draft. So we'll go Chase Brown here. And you can notice that the overall ADPs for the running back position are pushed up in the Eliminator. Chase Brown certainly going a few picks past this in the traditional formats. Rashee Rice goes, and I'm actually pretty ecstatic to get Tyreek Hill here. I think he gives me that alpha wide receiver 1 upside. He's going to continue to move up boards after this Jonnu Smith trade, and it allows me to get a wide receiver in round 3 who I think has top 5 overall upside. I mean, we've drafted Tyreek Hill there previously. The outlook has improved. I think without Jonnu there, he should be more healthy this year, all of that stuff. So not to mention, we do get the later buy as well, the week 12 buy, which is really nice as we've kind of outlined in that format. So through 3 rounds, Bijan, Chase Brown, Tyreek Hill, and I'm going to continue to try to stick to my objectives here, which is 3 tight ends. Obviously didn't take any of the early ones, no more than 3 rookies. We don't have any rookies yet. And I'm going to limit myself to no more than 3 players from any team, except for one of the Giants, Patriots, Panthers, or Niners. The Giants, the Patriots, and the Panthers don't have any players going in the first 3 rounds. The Niners, it would have been if I decided to pull up CMC there. Ultimately, I didn't. I think it might have been fun for the video had I pulled him up there to really show my conviction on this concept of backloading the buys as much as possible. But I'm going to go ahead and take Bijan there. I also just noticed we got Sacrilegious in here. I know he and the Leg Up crew have been working on Sims as well for this contest. So it'll be fun to kind of track and see what he is doing in this draft as well. He starts Puka, Brock Bowers, and does get Lamar Jackson there at 32. So I'll be keeping tabs on that and seeing how his teams shake out here. Some interesting decisions as we head here into our 4th round pick at 410. I think Tet McMillan's a really interesting use case because on the one hand, we do worry about the slow start production for rookies, but he accomplishes 2 other main things for me here. The primary one of that late buy in week 14. Obviously, we have the goal to load up on more than 4 players from one team and really take advantage of that edge. So I do think I am open to Tet McMillan here at 410 if he falls to me. Really don't want to do DK Metcalf with that week 5 buy. And Lee, Tet McMillan does go to the drafter Lee here. So I am on the clock. I think I want to go with another wide receiver with late season upside or a later buy. Let's go with Cortland Sutton here. Cortland Sutton here, another week 12 buy. I almost went with Xavier Worthy, and this would be one of those spots where we were talking about how we don't want to overrate the bye week stuff. I think you could have made the case with the double 12 bye weeks that it's not ideal. But again, I'm going to be thinking about this through the framework of the later the buys are, the less concerned I am there. But we will certainly be avoiding week 12 buys at the wide receiver position going forward. This is an interesting spot. I think Kenneth Walker here again accomplishes a lot of what I would like to do as far as helping this team get off to a fast start. He has a week 8 bye. This is only slightly more expensive than his BBM ADP, and I think he's undervalued in that format. So certainly in this, and when I start to look at the wide receivers here and how they're pushed down, I really like the wide receiver prices later compared to these running backs. You look at these 2v2s as you go down, you're looking now at like Jerry Jeudy versus Tony Pollard. I certainly prefer a guy like Jeudy in that scenario. So here through 5 rounds, we still have not taken any rookies, any tight ends, and we still don't have any week 14 guys. So if I'm going to stay on track with that, I am going to have to start thinking about the Giants, one of those running backs in that early range of, what is it, round 9, round 10, I think would make sense. The Panthers, there's a plethora late there, in the Patriots as well. Ramondre or Trevion Henderson, although Trevion Henderson isn't going to make it back to us, but Ramondre could be a nice piece there as well. As we head to my pick at the end of the 6th round, there's definitely some names I would like here. I would do Trevion Henderson as my running back 4. Again, similar with the Tet thing, not necessarily loving a guy who might get off to a slow start, but with that bye week backloaded there into week 14, that's attractive. He does go here to Sacrilegious, so no surprise. I'll go ahead and put Juwan Jennings and Jerry Jeudy in the queue as well. Jennings would be perfect, right? We get my week 14 guy. We could build out a stack with the Niners later and kind of go heavy there. I'm skeptical he's going to make it back to me since he's top of the queue. I also like Jerry Jeudy, another guy too, where I'm looking for consistent points. I'm looking for a ceiling here. Hochberg takes Jennings, but I will certainly live with Jerry Jeudy here. I think he's just undervalued in general. He's a guy who projects extremely well. And to get him here for this format, I think works really well. So we'll grab Jerry Jeudy, also a late buy. And now we have Bijan, Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, Tyreek Hill, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. The only part of this challenge that I think is going to be a little tricky is my goal of loading up on some week 14 buys. Haven't been able to get a Patriot, a Panther, or a Niner yet. So we might have to get a little creative there, but not too concerned quite yet. This could be a spot we could pull up Stephon Diggs here if we wanted, but man, it's just, I can't, even though I care about this bye week stuff, I'm not going to do it at the expense of a guy like Chris Godwin, who does go there. The Jaden Reed week 5 bye, I think, would be tough. Let's go ahead and take Ricky Pearsall. Let's take Ricky Pearsall, get a 14 bye there. We do have Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy. I want to start getting a little bit of breakout upside. While I feel good about Hill, Sutton, and Jeudy, I think the chances that they completely smash their ADP are probably smaller than a guy like Ricky Pearsall, who has a wide range of outcomes. And again, this does set me up for some stuff with the Niners if I want, but I'm probably not going to be able to get to 4 Niners. I guess I would have to do what? Pearsall, Brock Purdy, Garendo, but even then, the San Francisco skill position players have really kind of dried up. So Pearsall will just be a piece in general that I like for backloading the buy, but he's not going to help me accomplish my loading up on week 14 goal. This is a range I could certainly start thinking about quarterbacks. Obviously, Bo Nix and Brock Purdy makes sense. I completely forgot about Brandon Ayuk when I was talking about that, but he is not a player I want to target in a format where I want to get off to a fast start. Also unfortunate that Tyrone Tracy goes here as well. This is a tough spot. I think I will grab Cooper Kupp here. This is another instance of a guy that I'm not quite as excited about in Best Ball Mania, but we know that some of these veterans that were maybe worried about losing a little steam later in the season, that's going to be less important as far as getting these guys off to a fast start. I mean, Cooper Kupp, I could see him doing similar to what Larry Fitzgerald did in kind of the twilight years of his career, where he was still getting off to really fast starts, through 7-8 weeks and then tailed off. I'm more okay with that in this format. And I also get the team level correlation benefit with Kenneth Walker there. Bo Nix does go. I think I am going to use this as an opportunity to get my quarterback here. I'm going to grab Brock Purdy. I want to make sure I get one quarterback in this range. I do like the skinny correlation with Pearsall. And even though I'm not going to be loading up on Niners here, I still love kind of backloading that quarterback buy. So the team here through 9 rounds: Brock Purdy at quarterback, Bijan, Chase Brown, and Kenneth Walker at running back, Tyreek, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Ricky Pearsall, Cooper Kupp. Staying in line with all of my goals. The only thing here is I'm going to need to be loading up on some Giants, Patriots, or Panthers. Just not going to be able to get there on the Niners. I guess I could have thought about taking Cam Scatterbo there as well. That's going to make it trickier with the Giants, right? Because that really leaves me with Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, and a quarterback. So I could see that. I could potentially still do that really cheap backstack late. I think Robinson, Slayton, Theo Johnson, and then one of the quarterbacks could certainly make sense. Panthers, obviously, I still have lots I can do there. Bryce Young, Adam Thielen, Leggett, Rico, getting to 4 there. And then you include Jatavian Sanders and Coker. So the Panthers are probably still my best bet to really load up on a week 14 bye. And then the Patriots are just a little less attractive. I mean, I could do May, Williams, Henry, DeMario. That's not bad. That's not bad either. So probably Panthers or Giants, maybe Patriots, but I do want to make sure that I am taking advantage of that week 14 element. About to be on the clock at 10:10. It would be interesting if Drake May falls to me here. His ADP is 112. It would be my second quarterback with a week 14 bye, but not an issue there because I'll probably be getting a third anyways. And this would give me the opportunity to set up the Patriots as one of those other big back stacks. It would probably lock me into it. The other option would be to go Njoku. He gives me my first tight end. He pairs with Judy. Trey Harris goes. So now I kind of have to make the decision. With Drake May having the tight end in those extra late wide receiver options, let's do it. Let's pull this trigger here. So we get Drake May, which again, I think I could do, if I really had to, I could do a 2 quarterback build. Obviously, I want to still have a healthy body in week 14 so I can actually win this contest. But I think with those 2, Brock Purdy and Drake May, that's a really solid pairing as far as giving me the ceiling and the points out of the gate that I'm looking for here. Njoku is interesting, but I also think because I have Henry now and because there are so many tight ends in this range, I'm okay passing on Njoku there, who does go. I'm not going to take any of these quarterbacks, so I'm going to tab off of that. And now I want to keep wide receiver spots available for Drake May because I want to do DeMario Douglas. I'm going to want to look at those guys. Kyle Williams is at 145 here. Let's see here. I think Tyler Warren, I think, is an interesting pick for us. We haven't done any rookies yet. So we're not going to, hit up against our 3 limit max yet. And one of the things in general that I want to do with a 3 tight end build is I want there to be some really good upside there. I know I'm going to get a Hunter Henry here. I know I'm going to, be able to find guys who are on the field, but to find legit tight end upside late is hard. And I still want that upside. I still want my team to be getting stronger as the season progresses. So I think Tyler Warren is a nice way to get a tight end rookie detour there. So this will be a little bit of a sweat here as I wait to pick at 12:10. Normally it wouldn't be a sweat minus the challenge I've imposed here, which is I want to get to 4 players from one of these week 14 teams. And I think Kyle Williams is a pretty crucial part of this. He's now the second best available wide receiver on the board by ADP. The 2 drafters in front of me have 5 wide receivers and 4. So I'm hoping Lee here doesn't go wide receiver. And then if Hochberg does, he goes Mims. But I really want Kyle Williams here as part of this Drake May stack and helping me get to 4 New England players. And he goes Eckler. This works out well. In other scenarios where I didn't do Drake May, this would be the spot I would probably pull the trigger on Bryce Young. But now this works out well, right? Because we have Drake May and we have Kyle Williams. So we just need these 2 other New England players. And when I look at where I pick next, I pick at 147 and 166. Henry's ADP is 160. So I think I'm actually going to pull up Hunter Henry here to pick 147. I don't see a huge difference between, John, who's obviously sliding, Kincaid likely, like he belongs in this range anyway. So even though it's an ADP reach there, I'm not really concerned about it. There's no running backs I have to have here. Garendo as part of the San Francisco thing would be fine. But this is my spot to get Hunter Henry. I want to get to 3 tight ends. I want to continue to build out this bet on the Patriots. And he accomplishes all of those goals that we're going for. So let's do a little check-in. Have we got to 3 tight ends? Not yet, but we're going to get there. We have Tyler Warren and Hunter Henry. No more than 3 rookies. The only rookie we have so far is Kyle Williams. So we're keeping this vet heavy, making sure we're getting off to a fast start. And then I said I'm going to have no more than 3 players from any team. Doing good on that. We have Brock and Ricky Pearsall. We have Cooper Kupp and Kenneth Walker. Otherwise, no doubling up there, except getting to 4 more for one of the Giants, Patriots, Panthers, or Niners. We have 3 Patriots. And I will say Demario Douglas is a really crucial 4th piece of this for me. Could I take a Mac Hollins with my last round pick if I had to? I think so. Early reports, he's already playing in wide receiver 3 sets, although it's at the expense of Kyle Williams right now. But Demario Douglas really fits all of these needs just because he is a wide receiver who I think is going to provide that early season production. He's obviously correlated. He has the super late buy. He's everything I'm looking for here. So hopefully when we're on the clock next, he is there. God damn it. I should have known Sacrilegious was going to take Demario Douglas. Fucking leg up. Loves Demario Douglas. How did I think he was going to make it back to me? So I am going to have to do a Mac Hollins type late, which is okay. We can survive that. My current sweat now is I would like to get Sam Darnold on this team. He'll get me to that 3rd Seattle team, and I am going to stop there, obviously. But I want a 3rd quarterback. I want a quarterback who isn't on bye in week 14. And again, yeah, is there some late season bench risk for Sam Darnold? Yeah, that's why I'm kind of spooked about him in BBM. But in this format, on a team where I've already bet on Kenneth Walker and Cooper Kupp, I still want to make sure I am getting the benefits of some of that team level correlation. So we now have Sam Darnold as our 3rd quarterback. We're at a 3-3-6-2 with 3 picks left. We know that one of them is going to be a Patriots wide receiver. I'm going to probably do Mac Hollins there as my last pick. He's the guy that I tend to gravitate to. And I kind of don't mind the pairing of Mac Hollins with Kyle Williams. I think you could have kind of a passing of the baton movement there if Kyle Williams ends up, replacing Mac Hollins in 3 wide receiver sets, or maybe they are just out there together along with Demario Douglas. So we'll do that. This could be a spot to look for my 3rd tight end, I think. I'm making sure there's nothing else here that I really have to have here. I'm obviously not selecting Mac Hollins now, but we know that we're going to have, with these next 4 picks, at least one of them will be a running back. Let's see here. Who would be a nice pick for this team? I honestly don't think Jonnu's the worst pick at this price, but I still prefer Brenton Strange over him. Oops. I almost took Mac Hollins there at 15-2, which would not have been ideal. Here we go. The challenge, as usual, putting me in a bit of a blender here, but we can get our first ding over here. We got to 3 tight ends, our first Jacksonville Jags player, Brenton Strange there. And this is also a good time to kind of check in on the buys. Obviously, we're trying to backload them. Bijan Robinson, our only buy before week 8, which is really nice there. So I'm glad that I've, accomplished the goal of back weighting the buys to accomplish the 4 players from one team. We just need to add, Mac Hollins as our final wide receiver. And if we look at the final 3 picks here, I'm going to want to get to at least 4 running backs, might do a 5th there. And then we have some flexibility. I'm probably getting to a 3-5-7-3 is what I'm looking at here. Or I think we could do a 3-4-8-3 as well, depending on what position we think makes the most sense. Either that final 5th running back or that other wide receiver. But we do get to the 3 quarterbacks, the 3 tight ends there. We get some, skinny stacks without going overboard, which is certainly the goal here. And now it's just kind of thinking through kind of the profiles and the type of running backs I'd like to pair with Bijan, Chase Brown, and Kenneth Walker. I think I want to continue to hunt for upside here while making sure that they still have a little bit of standalone value. I do think Will Shipley certainly fits that bill. Obviously, he's going to be behind Barkley, but a lot of the early training camp reports are that he's going to have a role on this team even without a Barkley injury. So that being kind of an uber smash pick when Barkley does get hurt, but having some standalone is kind of the exact type of pick I would like to make here. I also think like a De'Ami Brown could make a good bit of sense. We do have Brenton Strange, so we make another little teammate bet there. He's a good kind of high floor, fast start player. But I also think we could look for a little other kind of juice, maybe in the running back room with a rookie who could really break out. Dylan Sampson, I think, paired with Jerry Jeudy makes a decent bit of sense. So we got some options here and we'll see how this shakes out. We know no one's taking Mac Hollins, so that's going to be our last pick. And it's just figuring out running back, wide receiver here with these next two. I think I might prefer the two running backs here, even though in, BBM with a hyper fragile build where I go 3 early, I'm probably always shutting it down at 4. I think I might like those better. And Shipley does go. So I think what I want to do here is I'm probably going to sacrifice De'Ami Brown and prioritize Dylan Sampson. I like still having the teammate pairing without going crazy. So we'll do Dylan Sampson with Jerry Jeudy. And we are up now to 3 rookies. So I'm done with rookies. I said I didn't want to go more than that. We did do the rookies on the cheaper end, which is nice. Dylan Sampson pick 190, Kyle Williams 142, Tyler Warren 123. So no more rookies for me. One of these picks is Mac Hollins, and it's basically deciding between a veteran running back or wide receiver with this other pick here. If De'Ami's here, I think I still could go. I actually think Justice Hill is a nice compliment on a team like this. I'm not doing the Jarquez Hunter. I could do like the Keaton Mitchell if I prefer that different flavor. Let's go ahead and do Justice Hill. He slides past ADP here. I think he's a nice value. I want a 5th running back. He's a guy that's going to give me that floor production early. Feel good about his role. And I think he kind of pairs well with Sampson. So we'll grab that and we'll end up going with just 7 wide receivers. But let's take a look and see if this is a strong enough wide receiver room. And it does kind of in a way mirror, what Mathology did in that nutted team we looked at, where he didn't devote a ton of capital to the wide receiver position in that build. As you guys can remember, he had Jamar Chase up top. He had Terry McLaurin in the 5th, Jamison Williams in the 7th. Then he waited all the way to the 12th. Josh Downs, Darnell Mooney, Tolbert, Wilson. So kind of similar here. Tyreek Hill early, in the Chase range. Obviously, Jamar Chase was 104, Tyreek Hill in the 3rd, but that's kind of the outcome I'm looking for. Cortland Sutton in the Terry McLaurin range, Jerry Jeudy in the Jamison Williams range, and then Ricky Pearsall could kind of be the Downs, Cooper Kupp's the Mooney, Kyle Williams is your Jalen Tolbert. So kind of tracking, similar draft capital to that team. And I think it works out to go 7 wide receivers here. And assuming no one snipes us on Mac Hollins, we will be able to have accomplished all of our goals here. Mac Hollins will be that 4th New England Patriot there. I should go while we're on the clock and I'm waiting to finish this draft. I should always just peek into the Coach Speak Index and see if there's anything cooking on New England wide receivers. Although what I'm afraid of is that I'm going to see something about Efton Chisholm, who's been getting praise, the 5'10" undrafted wide receiver there. Yes, that's exactly it. On Efton Chisholm, I think he's a talented player. I'm not taking him. I'm not doing that. Demario Douglas got the last blur back in May. Kayshon Boutte has gotten in better shape. But I think Mac Hollins is the guy that if I'm taking a stab on a later veteran Patriots wide receiver, that's who I want to do. He was good last year with the Bills, made an impact in the playoffs. The Patriots signed him. He's just a guy that I think is going to be on the field. The way he plays, I think lends itself to touchdowns and big plays. So this is me coping my way through getting sniped on Demario Douglas. Thank you, Sacrilegious, for that. But I don't mind it here. And when I look at the other wide receivers late, it's not like I'm sacrificing, something crazy by making this, final correlated piece here. If I had Bryce Young, do I prefer Jalen Coker to Mac Hollins? Yes, absolutely. If I had a Bo Nix stack, would I prefer Troy Franklin? Yeah. But if I'm going to use the correlation as a tiebreaker, then Mac Hollins certainly enters the conversation for these 18th round picks. And this draft is about to complete, and I will have completed all of my goals, and we can recap this and see if we like it. I will say there were a few picks that didn't feel perfect. I wouldn't say this was like my dream draft, but it does illustrate exactly kind of how I want to be approaching these. So yes, Mac Hollins, come to the team. Let's recap this team here once and for all. 3 tight ends. Did we do that? Correct. Tyler Warren, Hunter Henry, Brenton Strange. I think a solid 3 tight end room. Bye weeks backloaded there. No more than 3 rookies. Don't want to go overboard on rookies, and we prefer to have those rookies later as opposed to premium
assets early, we get Tyler Warren at tight end, we get Kyle Williams at wide receiver, and we get Dylan Sampson at running back. So just the 3 rookies there. I'm going to have no more than 3 players from any one team. That is also in check here. Outside of our exception that we're going to get to, we have 2 Niners, we have 2 or 3 Seahawks, we have 2 Cleveland players, but no other major stacks outside of the exception we're making, which is for week 14 teams, knowing that those week 14 buys are so much less of an issue in this specific format with how the EV escalates for these teams throughout the contest. And that if you make it to week 14, you're not going to be too concerned with those buys when you have $10,000 in your account. So that final stack, Drake May, Kyle Williams, Mac Hollins, and Hunter Henry. I think really the main thing I would have switched is like being able to get a Trevion or a Ramondre, I think would have been nice to have that running back as part of the stack. Obviously, getting Demario Douglas would have been much preferred to Mac Hollins. But honestly, I don't have a ton of complaints. Like, this is how I want the texture of my Eliminator teams to look. And I do just want to check. I remember when Trevion went, I want to make sure I didn't mistakenly pass on Ramondre. He went 105. Which is definitely a bit early here. I took Bric at 99 and then he was gone. So I don't think I was going to pull Ramondre up to pick 99 as my 4th running back there. I liked waiting there considering I started with these 3 really top heavy guys. So there you guys have it. This was a ton of fun. Let me know, what are your guys' favorite angles in the Eliminator? Let me know if you guys have uncovered any other nuggets. And yeah, super excited for this contest. Going to try to get in as many entries as I can. And thanks to everyone for watching. Shout out to editor Chris for all of his help here with the production. And shout out to Christopher Davis for all of his work with The Sims. Had a blast putting this together. We'll see you guys next time on the Deposit Kingdom channel.